My husband left me to die in the rain. When I woke up, I was on the Mafia boss's bed. A good girl, a hospital nurse, is shoved into a storm and left to die by the one person who promised to love her. She opens her eyes, not in a hospital, but on the bed of the most feared man in the city. He says she's under his protection. She says she wants out. Then the city turns on her. Fake video, flashing badges, a price on her head. The truth hides in a cheap locket, a secret drive, a lie so cold it could start a war. Now killers are closing in, a traitor is inside, and the man in the shadows will burn everything to keep her breathing. Is this the cage that ends her life, or the only place she'll finally be safe? And who will she choose when love means picking a side in a bloodstorm? Through the haze of rain and shock, Lena's world narrowed to fragments. The soft leather seat beneath her, the steady pressure of a warm hand at her neck, the low rumble of voices around her. Her head throbbed where it had hit the pavement, each pulse bringing fresh waves of dizziness. "Stay with me." The man's voice cut through the fog, deep, commanding, yet oddly gentle. Even in her confused state, she recognized authority in those 3 words. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the interior of the SUV in stark bursts. In those brief moments, she caught glimpses of her surroundings. Black leather, tinted windows, men in dark suits. The man beside her, Armin Vale, she remembered hearing, kept his hand on her pulse while speaking rapid-fire instructions into a phone. "Full trauma kit ready. No, I want Matthews on this. Clear the floor." His accent was subtle, a hint of something Eastern European beneath cultivated American pronunciation. Lena tried to focus, to make sense of how her world had imploded in the space of 10 minutes. The gala, Ethan's strange behavior, the warehouse. Her fingers went to her bare ring finger, the skin there still tender where he'd yanked the wedding band off. "Don't move too much," Armin said, his other hand coming to steady her shoulder. "Possible concussion, will have you checked soon." The clinical assessment in his tone was familiar. She heard it in the ER daily. But there was something else there too, an underlying current of carefully controlled rage that made her pulse jump under his fingers. "You're safe now," he added, as if sensing her fear. A harsh laugh escaped her lips, tasting of copper. "Safe? My husband just—" The words wouldn't come, the betrayal too fresh to voice. "Your husband," Armin said, his voice going dangerously soft, "made several grave mistakes tonight. Leaving you was merely the last." The SUV swerved suddenly, and pain lanced through Lena's head. She must have made some sound because Armin's grip tightened slightly, steadying her. "Anton," he barked at the driver, "more careful." "Sorry, boss. Construction on 6th. Lena forced her eyes open, fighting the urge to slip into darkness. The city lights blurred past the windows, too fast, too bright. She needed to think, to understand. "Why?" she managed to ask. "What did he owe?" "Money," Armin answered simply. "But that's not your concern right now." "Like hell it's not," Lena muttered, professional instincts kicking in despite everything. "I need to know what I'm dealing with. Symptoms, causes, prognosis." A low sound that might have been amusement came from Armin. "You're bleeding, possibly concussed and in shock. Yet you're trying to diagnose the situation." "Trauma nurse," she reminded him, touching her badge, which was still clipped to her dress. The sequined navy fabric was torn and damp, but the hospital ID remained intact. "It's what I do." "I know exactly who you are, Lena Moreau." Something in his tone made her look up sharply, instantly regretting the movement as pain speared through her temple. "Your reputation in the ER precedes you." Before she could question that, the SUV turned sharply into an underground garage. Through the windshield, Lena glimpsed sleek columns and polished concrete, nothing like the utilitarian hospital parking structure she was used to. "Where?" "Private medical facility," Armin cut in smoothly, more discreet than Metro General. The vehicle stopped, and suddenly there was movement all around them. Doors opening, voices calling out, the click of dress shoes on concrete. But Armin's hand remained steady at her pulse point, an anchor in the chaos. "Can you walk?" Lena started to nod, then thought better of it. "I can try." "You don't have to." Without waiting for her response, he slid one arm behind her shoulders and the other under her knees. "Hold on to me." She wanted to protest. She was a medical professional, not some damsel in distress. But the world tilted alarmingly as he lifted her. Her fingers clutched at his shirt, feeling solid muscle beneath expensive fabric. "I've got you," he murmured, so quietly she almost missed it. The scent of leather and gun oil was stronger now, mixed with something else. Cedar, maybe, or sandalwood. It should have frightened her, these physical reminders that she was in the arms of a man who clearly operated outside the law. Instead, she found herself relaxing slightly, her body recognizing safety even as her mind screamed danger. Through half-closed eyes, she saw they were moving through some kind of private elevator, all chrome and mirrors. The reflection showed her what a mess she was. Mascara smeared, hair plastered to her face, a thin line of blood trailing from her temple. But it also showed Armin Vale clearly for the first time. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp cheekbones and darker skin that spoke of Mediterranean ancestry. His black hair was swept back from a face that belonged on a Renaissance statue, all angles and shadows, but it was his eyes that caught her attention, deep brown, almost black, and completely focused on her. The elevator doors opened to a pristine, medical suite that looked more like a luxury hotel than a clinic. A team in scrubs waited, led by a gray-haired man who stepped forward immediately. "Dr. Matthews?" Armin said, his voice returning to that tone of command. "She needs—" "I can speak for myself," Lena interrupted, surprising herself with the strength in her voice. "Left temporal laceration, possible concussion, mild shock. I lost consciousness briefly in transit." Both men looked at her, the doctor with professional approval, Armin with something that might have been admiration. "Get her stabilized," Armin ordered as he lowered her carefully onto an exam bed. "Full workup. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." His hand finally left her pulse point, and Lena felt the loss of contact like a physical thing. As the medical team moved in with practiced efficiency, she caught one last glimpse of him standing in the doorway, his dark eyes unreadable as they met hers. Consciousness returned slowly, like waves lapping at the shore. Lena blinked against the dim light, her mind cataloging sensations with medical precision. Soft silk sheets whispered against her skin. The mattress cradled her body like a cloud. An IV line snaked from her left arm, the gentle drip marking time in the quiet room. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a cityscape, painted in twilight blues and grays. Rain still pelted the glass, creating shifting shadows across the plush carpet. This wasn't a hospital room. It was too luxurious, too private. Her gaze caught on a biometric keypad next to the door, then settled on something more disturbing. A matte black pistol on the nightstand. The door opened soundlessly, and Armin entered. He'd changed into a dark shirt that did nothing to hide the blood spatter across his chest. Blood that wasn't hers. His movements were controlled, precise, like a predator trying not to frighten prey. "I'm Armin," he said simply, forgoing any titles or explanations. "You have a mild concussion, 2 cracked ribs, and were hypothermic when we brought you in. Dr. Matthews stitched the laceration on your forehead." He paused, studying her face. "I've posted a guard outside because someone wants you dead. You'll be safe here until I find who paid for the hit." Lena pushed herself up, ignoring the throb in her ribs. "I need to leave. There was a contract out near the docks tonight." His voice remained calm, matter-of-fact. "The description matched your dress, your shoes. Walking out now puts you back in their crosshairs." "How do I know I can trust your medical team?" She gestured to the IV. "For all I know, you could be." He crossed to a nearby table, picking up a medical chart. "See for yourself. Check the packaging of everything they used. Test the IV solution. I won't control you medically, Lena. That's not how this works." She took the chart with steady hands, years of training kicking in as she reviewed vital signs, medication doses, treatment notes. Everything was professional, precise. The sterile packaging lay neatly arranged on a tray, all sealed, all standard hospital grade. "There are clean clothes in the wardrobe," Armin said, gesturing to a door she hadn't noticed. "Shower, if you'd like." Dr. Matthews left pain medication on the nightstand. The bathroom was as luxurious as the bedroom, marble and chrome, with thick towels and high-end toiletries. Lena stood under the hot spray, letting it wash away dried blood and the memory of rain. Her ribs ached, but the pain was manageable. Professional detachment helped her catalog her injuries. The stitches were neat, minimal scarring likely. The bruising would fade. After drying off, she found soft black clothes laid out, a t-shirt and drawstring pants that felt like cotton clouds against her skin. The wardrobe stood open, revealing rows of similar comfort wear in various sizes. This wasn't just a bedroom. It was part of a fortress, one accustomed to sheltering people who needed to disappear. The guard outside her door was polite but unmovable when she tested the exit. He stood straight, hands clasped behind his back, respectfully avoiding eye contact. "I'm sorry, Ms. Moreau. For your safety, I need you to remain in the room." Back inside, Lena perched on the edge of the bed, mind racing through options. The windows would be reinforced, the ventilation system too small. The keypad would have a silent alarm. A gilded cage was still a cage, no matter how comfortable. The door opened again, and Armin entered. This time he moved to the nightstand, setting something down with deliberate care. Her wedding ring caught the low light, diamonds sparkling accusingly. Their eyes met, and his gaze was steady, intent. He didn't need to speak. The message was clear. He wanted to know why a husband would discard both ring and wife in one violent moment. Lena broke the silence first. "How did you find it?" "It was in the street where he pushed you out." Armin's voice held no judgment, just quiet observation. "The setting's bent. I can have it repaired." "Don't bother." She looked away from the ring, from the memories it carried. It was never really mine anyway. Just another thing he controlled. Armin moved to the windows, his reflection overlaying the city lights. "The guard will change every 6 hours. If you need anything, food, books, medical attention, tell them. They'll radio me directly." "And if I try to leave?" "They'll stop you." He turned back to face her. "Not with force. Never that. But they will prevent you from walking into a bullet meant for you." Lena touched her stitches gently. "How long?" "Until I find who paid for the hit and why." His eyes flickered to the ring. "And why your husband thought trading your life would save his." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Lena sank back against the pillows, exhaustion suddenly overwhelming her. The concussion, the emotional shock, the medications, all of it crashed over her at once. Armin moved to the door, pausing with his hand on the handle. "Rest. You're safe here." Safe is relative when you're locked in a stranger's bedroom. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "True, but sometimes the devil you don't know is better than the one you married." The door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving Lena alone with her thoughts and that damned ring glinting on the nightstand. Outside, the city continued its rain-soaked dance of light and shadow, while inside, she tried to reconcile the man who had just left. Controlled, respectful, dangerous, with the one who had lifted her so carefully from the rain. The rain hadn't stopped by morning, painting gray streaks down the floor to ceiling windows. Lena sat up carefully in bed, mindful of her ribs, as a knock preceded a woman entering with a breakfast tray. "Good morning, Ms. Moreau. I'm Yara." She set the tray on the bedside table, oatmeal steaming with fresh berries, a pot of tea, and honey. "There's a call button here if you need anything urgent." She indicated a small panel near the bed. "And this phone is programmed for internal numbers only, but you can reach security or medical assistance immediately." The oatmeal was perfect, not too sweet, with a hint of cinnamon. Lena hadn't realized how hungry she was until the first spoonful touched her lips. As she ate, she studied Yara's efficient movements around the room, noting how the woman's watchful eyes belied her courteous demeanor. Another knock, and Armin appeared in the doorway. "If you're feeling up to it, I'd like to show you the rest of your temporary home. See the cage walls, as it were." Lena followed him through sleek corridors to an open-plan living area that took up most of the penthouse floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the rain-shrouded city. Modern furniture in deep blues and grays created intimate seating areas, while a state-of-the-art kitchen gleamed with stainless steel and marble. "Oh my God, you must be Lena!" A young woman in a motorized wheelchair zipped around a curved desk covered in monitors. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she wore a worn MIT sweatshirt. "I'm Maya, the much cooler Vale sibling," she shot Armin a teasing look. "And currently annoyed because this drone's motion curve is drifting like a drunk pigeon." The security drone on her desk whirred softly as Maya tapped at its exposed circuitry. "But forget my tech troubles. You're a trauma nurse. That's amazing. Tell me everything about the ER. Do you really see people who've stuffed random objects where random objects should never go?" Lena couldn't help smiling at Maya's enthusiasm. "More often than you'd think." "Maya," Armin's tone carried warning, but his eyes held fondness. "She's recovering from a concussion. Maybe save the medical horror stories for later." "You're such a mother hen," Maya rolled her eyes, but her shiver didn't escape notice. Armin moved behind her wheelchair, tucking a cashmere throw around her shoulders with practiced care. His hands moved in a quick gesture, something private, familial, and Maya returned it with a soft smile before he stepped away. When he turned back to Lena, something in his posture had shifted. His shoulders sloped slightly, almost apologetically, as if aware she'd witnessed a side of him she wasn't meant to see. This brief glimpse of tenderness between siblings cracked the surface of his controlled exterior. "You promised I could contact the hospital," Lena reminded him. Armin nodded. "Through a secure line." He produced a phone, already dialing. "It's anonymized." The hospital's familiar hold music played until a supervisor answered. Lena's heart clenched when she heard about Ethan's early morning visit, how he'd reported her missing at 2 a.m., how devastated he appeared. The story clashed violently with the reality of him pushing her out of the car, of his white-knuckled grip on the steering wheel and the fear-sour scent of his cologne. "Thank you," she managed, handing the phone back to Armin. The disconnect between public perception and private truth made her head spin worse than the concussion. "Back to your room," he said quietly. "You need rest." They were almost there when a sharp, alert tone cut through the air. Maya's voice called out, "Armin, newsfeed, channel 6. On the wall screen, grainy security footage played. The timestamp showed 3 a.m. when Lena had been unconscious in this very building. But there on screen, a figure in scrubs that matched her build and coloring was clearly removing something from the hospital's medication cabinet. The news crawler below read, "Nurse suspected in opioid theft," followed by a police bulletin with her name and description. "Someone just slammed the legal door shut on you," Armin said softly. Lena stared at the footage, nausea rising. "That's not me. That's not even possible. I was here, unconscious. You know that." "I know." His voice was steel wrapped in silk. "And we can prove it with the clinic's records and security footage. But whoever wants you gone is making sure you have nowhere safe to run." The rain hammered against the windows with renewed fury, matching the pounding in Lena's head. The fabricated evidence, the missing persons report, Ethan's performance of the grieving husband, it was all connected, all carefully orchestrated to trap her. Maya wheeled closer, her fingers flying over a tablet. "The timestamp metadata's been altered. Whoever did this is good, but they left traces. Give me time, I can prove it's fake." "Time," Lena echoed hollowly. "How much time do I have before they come for me with warrants?" "They won't get near you," Armin stated, and the quiet certainty in his voice sent a shiver down her spine. "This building is a fortress, and every person here is vetted, loyal, and very good at their jobs." Yara appeared with fresh tea and pain medication. The domesticity of the gesture felt surreal against the background of destruction being wrought on Lena's life. "Rest," Armin repeated. "Let us work. Maya will analyze the footage. I have people tracking the source, and you need to heal. Whatever's coming, you'll face it stronger if you don't push yourself now." The rain continued its assault on the windows as Lena sank onto the bed, the weight of fabricated evidence and real danger pressing down like lead. Outside, the city disappeared into sheets of gray, while inside, the walls of her gilded cage suddenly felt less like a prison and more like a shield. The city skyline blurred behind sheets of rain as Lena stood before the wall-mounted TV, her fingers curled into fists so tight her knuckles whitened. The news anchor's polished voice was muted, but the crawling text beneath painted a damning picture. "Hospital investigation, nurse's double life." B-roll footage showed the hospital's facade, the very place she'd dedicated her life to helping others, then cut to that grainy security video again, the one doctored to show her accessing the medication lockup at unauthorized times, face partially visible but unmistakably hers. "They're implying I stole drugs to fund some secret addiction or lifestyle," Lena said, her voice tight with disbelief and rage. The bitter taste of betrayal coated her tongue. "It's barely been 12 hours since—" She couldn't finish the sentence. 12 hours since her husband had calmly pulled over on that empty stretch of road, looked her in the eyes, and told her to get out before pushing her from the moving car. Armin stood nearby, his presence solid as a wall, dark suit impeccably tailored despite the late hour. His eyes tracked every micro-expression that crossed her face, assessing her mental state with the same precision he used to evaluate threats. "Let me be clear about your situation," he said, his tone as precise as a surgeon delivering a diagnosis. Not a hint of emotion colored his words, just cold facts laid bare. "If you leave this building, you'll face 2 immediate threats. The contractors who were paid to eliminate you will try again. Next time they won't miss. and law enforcement, working with fabricated evidence planted by someone with access and resources, will arrest you. Staying here gives us time to trace both threats to their source and neutralize them. The last word carried a lethal finality. Using what resources exactly? Lena turned to face him fully, chin lifted in challenge, despite the exhaustion pulling at her limbs. The bruises from her fall were darkening along her side, a constant reminder of how close she'd come to death. My organization has extensive reach, financial investigators, security specialists, technological assets. His eyes held hers, unflinching and intense. Something dangerous lurked behind that controlled exterior, something she'd glimpsed when he'd found her stumbling along the roadside, bleeding and disoriented. And, unlike your enemies, we operate without institutional constraints. Got it! Maya's voice cut through the tension, bright and triumphant. Her wheelchair hummed softly as she maneuvered closer, tablet extended like a trophy. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, a stark contrast to Armin's controlled appearance despite sharing his sharp features. The video file's metadata shows it was uploaded through a series of proxies, but the original source. Her fingers flew across the screen with practiced speed, pulling up corporate registries and connecting invisible dots. Links back to a shell company that shares an address with Ethan's clinic. Classic amateur mistake, using the same registered agent for both entities. Lena's knees weakened beneath her. She sank onto the butter-soft leather couch, the evidence of her husband's betrayal laid bare in digital breadcrumbs. The room swam before her eyes as the full implications settled like concrete in her stomach. Every obvious escape route, the police, the hospital administration, even women's shelters, had been poisoned against her through Ethan's connections and influence. The only path forward led through this penthouse fortress and the dangerous man offering protection. If I stay, she said carefully, measuring each word, I need conditions. Armin inclined his head, not surprised by her assertion. Name them. His voice carried no negotiation, only acceptance. No locked doors inside the penthouse. I need to move freely. She counted off on her fingers. I want full access to my medical records and treatment decisions. No one decides what happens to my body but me. And she met his gaze directly, refusing to flinch from the intensity she found there. No physical intimacy without explicit consent. Not even casual touches. Agreed on all counts. He extended his hand, not as a businessman sealing a deal, but as someone offering a vow more binding than paper could capture. Your autonomy matters to me. It always will. Lena studied his hand for a long moment, noting the faint scars across his knuckles before taking it. His palm was warm, grip firm but gentle, enveloping her smaller hand completely. This wasn't surrender, she told herself. This was choosing the best of bad options while maintaining her agency in a world suddenly turned upside down. The guest room isn't secure enough, Armin said, releasing her hand after a beat too long. My suite has reinforced walls, multiple surveillance angles, and a panic room with independent systems. You'll be safer there. Your suite, Lena repeated flatly, wariness creeping back into her posture. Not as a claim, he clarified immediately, reading her concern with uncomfortable accuracy. As a tactical decision, the security system there is personally maintained. I trust it completely, and I trust few things in this world. Maya wheeled closer, her expression open and reassuring, where her brother's remained unreadable. He's right about the security. I designed half of it myself. She squeezed Lena's arm, a gentle sisterly gesture that felt startlingly normal amid the chaos. And the panic room has its own ventilation system and enough supplies for days. Water, food, medical equipment, the works. Lena nodded slowly, weighing her limited options. Show me. The master suite occupied the penthouse's northeast corner, spacious yet surprisingly understated. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the storm-dark city, raindrops racing down the glass like tears. Lightning occasionally illuminated the clouds, casting stark shadows across the minimalist furniture. Lena focused on the practical details. The reinforced door, with its discreet electronic lock, the subtle camera positions tucked into corners, the keypad beside a seamless panel that must lead to the panic room. Armin demonstrated the code, 7 digits, not a date or pattern, then stepped back to let her memorize it herself, respecting her need for self-reliance. She unpacked her meager belongings, the borrowed black tee that hung loose on her frame, her wedding ring that seemed to burn her fingers as she handled it, into an empty drawer he'd cleared. The ring caught the gray light, a circle of precious metal and diamonds that had meant nothing in the end. Just another prop in Ethan's elaborate performance. She shut the drawer firmly, as if containing a venomous creature. Thunder rolled outside as evening approached, the storm intensifying rather than passing. Armin stood in the doorway, his silhouette sharp against the dimming light, shoulders set in a posture that spoke of contained violence. "I'm sending teams to the docks," he said, already mentally elsewhere, mapping strategies. "Someone there knows who arranged the hit. Maya will keep tracing the financial connections. Nothing stays hidden from her for long." And I just... Wait. The word tasted bitter on Lena's tongue. As a trauma nurse, she was accustomed to action, to being the one who fixed broken bodies and soothed panicked minds. Helplessness was an unfamiliar, unwelcome companion. "You heal," he corrected, his gaze softening fractionally. "You process. You prepare for what comes next. This isn't the end of your story, it's just a dangerous chapter." Later, lying in the vast bed with its Egyptian cotton sheets and weight of 1,000 thread count, Lena stared at the rain-streaked windows. The city lights blurred into watery constellations beyond the glass. She couldn't stop hearing Ethan's voice, how steady it had been as he pushed her out of the car on that deserted stretch of road. No anger, no regret, just calm efficiency in disposing of her. The same clinical detachment he showed during difficult patient conversations. Had everything been a lie from the beginning? The courtship, the wedding vows, the plans they'd made? The elevator's distant chime carried through the quiet penthouse, followed by low voices. Security rotation, she guessed. Armin's voice followed, soft but carrying absolute authority that expected immediate compliance. "No one crosses this threshold without my say. Her safety is paramount. Understood?" The answering murmurs were respectful, immediate. In the dark, Lena pressed her palm against her bruised ribs, feeling her heartbeat beneath. Still alive. Despite everything, still fighting. Tomorrow would bring new dangers, but tonight, in this strange fortress with its dangerous guardian, she allowed herself one moment of fragile safety. The training room was stark and functional, mats covering the floor, mirrors lining one wall, and subtle cameras in the corners. Lena stood in her borrowed workout clothes, watching Armin's reflection as he moved with controlled precision. "Safety isn't just about strength," he said, voice measured. "It's about awareness and quick decisions. May I demonstrate a grip break?" Lena nodded, appreciating how he asked instead of assuming. He approached slowly, telegraphing his movements. "Someone grabs you from behind." His hand settled lightly on her shoulders. "Drop your weight, turn into their weakest point." He guided her through the motion, maintaining a clinical distance. Again, but faster. They worked through escapes and defensive stances for an hour. Armin never touched without warning, always checked her comfort level, and explained everything with tactical clarity. He showed her the training room's exits, the reinforced panels that could drop from the ceiling, the emergency lights that would guide her path in darkness. "Last thing," he said, producing a sleek watch. "May I?" At her nod, he fastened it around her wrist, explaining the panic button and tracking features. "Press once for alert, twice for immediate extraction. It's waterproof, and the battery lasts months." His fingers were warm against her pulse point, professional but somehow intimate. She flexed her wrist, testing the weight. "Thank you." In the kitchen afterward, Lena noticed the raw knuckles on his right hand, fresh scrapes and bruising consistent with throwing punches. Without thinking, she caught his wrist. "Let me see." "It's nothing." But he didn't pull away. She gathered first aid supplies, hyper-aware of his presence as she cleaned the wounds. His hands were large, scarred in places, yet capable of surprising gentleness. The dock workers weren't feeling talkative. Some required persuasion. His voice was neutral, but she felt tension in his muscles. "And you handled that personally." She dabbed antiseptic on a particularly deep split. "Some tasks I don't delegate." He watched her work, breathing measured. "Especially when they concern your safety." The kitchen felt suddenly smaller, warmer. Her fingers trembled slightly as she wrapped gauze around his knuckles. Every brush of skin sent electricity through her nerves. She secured the bandage and looked up to find his eyes dark, intent. "Thank you," he said softly. Lena stepped back, needing air. She moved toward the gate's balcony doors, and after a moment, heard him follow. The rain had softened to a misty drizzle, leaving the city gleaming like black glass. Skyscrapers pierced the low clouds, their lights diffused into halos. Lena leaned on the railing, letting the cool air settle her pulse. Armin stood beside her, close enough that she felt his warmth. "It's peaceful up here," he said. "Above everything." She turned to look at him. Water droplets caught in his dark hair, and his profile was sharp against the city lights. The air between them felt charged, magnetic. When he faced her, her breath caught at the intensity in his eyes. He moved closer, slow enough that she could step away. She didn't. His hand rose to her cheek, thumb brushing her jawline with exquisite care. Lena's eyes fluttered closed as she swayed toward him. A harsh alarm shattered the moment. Armin stiffened, instantly alert. His gun appeared in his hand as he pressed a comm unit in his ear. "Maya, report." "Garage sensors triggered," Maya's voice crackled through Lena's watch. "Multiple signatures. They're using tech to bypass security. Get Lena to the panic room, now!" His voice was ice. "I'll handle the garage." "This way," Maya directed through the comm as Lena ran. "Third door on your left, code 937844. Lena's fingers flew over the keypad. The reinforced door whispered open, revealing a space about 12 feet square with screens, supplies, and what looked like a military-grade communication setup. "Lock it down," Maya ordered. "I've got cameras on every approach." A deep boom shook the building, the lights flickered, and Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. She braced herself against the door, listening to running footsteps in the hallway. "Status?" Maya demanded over comms. "Under control." Armin's voice was deadly calm. "Lena, stay put. I need to clean house." Another explosion rumbled through the walls. Lena pressed her hands flat against cold metal, breathing hard, waiting in the artificial quiet of the panic room while violence echoed below. Through the security feeds, she watched shadows move through the corridors like smoke. And somewhere in the darkness, Armin hunted them with lethal grace, protecting what was his. Emergency lights pulsed crimson through the panic room's security feeds, turning the corridor outside into a hellscape of shadows and blood-red illumination. Lena's hands were steady, but her heart thundered as gunfire echoed through the building's bones. "Focus here," Maya's voice commanded through the comm. "See the phone screen? Those blue dots are our security teams. Red are hostiles." A tactical map glowed on the borrowed phone, showing multiple moving points throughout the garage levels. "The yellow dot?" Lena asked, clinging to the technical details to keep panic at bay. "That's my brother. Watch how he moves. Systematic, containing the threat away from civilian areas." Maya's tone was clinical, helping Lena process the violence as data rather than terror. "See how the red dots are decreasing?" A muffled explosion rattled the walls. Lena watched another red dot vanish from the display. "Perimeter breach in the north stairwell," Maya reported sharply. "One hostile approaching the suite level." Through the panic room's camera feed, Lena saw a black-clad figure emerge into the corridor, weapon raised. Before she could blink, Armin materialized from the shadows like a vengeful spirit. His movements were precise, lethal, a dance of violence choreographed to end the threat as efficiently as possible. The intruder never stood a chance. In seconds, it was over. Lena couldn't look away from the feed. Armin stood in the red-washed hallway, rain and darker liquid staining his clothes, every line of his body screaming dangerous predator. She'd known what he was capable of, but seeing it was different. Seeing how he weaponized himself to protect what was his. "All clear," Maya announced after several tense minutes. "Security teams reporting no additional hostiles. Armin?" "Confirmed clear." His voice was gravel over the comm. "Lena, I'm approaching the panic room. You have control of the door." On the camera feed, she watched him walk slowly toward her sanctuary, hands visible, movements deliberate. When he reached the door, he waited. "May I come in?" That question, that choice, made her decision. She pressed the release. Armin entered cautiously, and Lena saw what others might miss. The slight tremor in his hands, the tightly controlled breathing of someone managing adrenaline crash. Without hesitation, she reached for him, taking his hand in hers. His fingers were cold from the rain, but they steadied at her touch. "Sit with me," she asked softly. They ended up on the bedroom floor, backs against the wall, shoulders barely touching. Armin produced bottled water from somewhere, and they drank in silence, matching their breathing to slow racing hearts. "I'm scared," Lena admitted finally, rolling the empty bottle between her palms. "Not of you," she added quickly when he tensed. "Of being hunted, of being powerless again." Armin turned to face her, his eyes fierce in the dim light. "Violence touches you only through me," he promised, each word weighted with deadly intent. Never again will you be powerless. The air between them crackled with something beyond adrenaline. Lena found herself studying his mouth, remembering their almost kiss on the balcony. I want to kiss you, he said quietly. But only if you're certain. We're both running hot right now. Yes, she breathed. Please. He moved slowly, giving her time to change her mind. When his lips met hers, it was gentle despite the hunger. She felt trembling through his restraint. She pressed closer, tasting rain and metal and need. The kiss stayed controlled, closed-mouthed but full of promise, until they both pulled back by mutual agreement. We should wait, Armin said roughly. Make decisions when we're steady. Lena nodded, though her body hummed with wanting more. Smart. You should rest. He helped her to her feet. Take the bed. I'll watch. Too drained to argue, Lena crawled under the covers, fully clothed. From her pillow, she could see Armin settle into the chair by the door, gun across his thighs. Rain painted patterns on the windows as the emergency lights finally faded to normal illumination. She watched him through heavy eyes. This dangerous man who asked permission to enter rooms, who killed to keep her safe, who kissed her like she was precious but stopped when adrenaline clouded judgment. His profile was sharp against the city lights, every line of his body alert despite exhaustion. As sleep pulled her under, Lena's last sight was Armin's unwavering vigilance, his protection wrapped around her like armor. He would guard her until dawn, not because she was his possession, but because he had chosen to be her shield against the darkness. Through the night, his eyes never left the door, his hand never left his weapon, and his attention never wavered from his self-appointed duty. Every shift in the shadows, every whisper of wind against the windows, every distant city sound was catalogued and assessed for threat. The rain continued its steady percussion against the glass, but inside this fortress, in this room, Lena slept deeply for the first time since her world imploded. Armin maintained his vigil with the patience of a predator and the devotion of a guardian, his very stillness a warning to any who might dare breach this sanctuary. The violence in him was leashed but ready, held in check by choice rather than weakness. He had made her a promise, and he would keep it with whatever force necessary. As the storm slowly spent itself against the windows, the city's pulse settled into its pre-dawn rhythm. Still, Armin watched, his protection absolute, his dedication unshakable. Until the sun rose to paint the sky in shades of hope, he would be her sentinel, her shield, her safe harbor in a world that had tried to devour her. Sunday dawned bright and clear, the storm's violence washed away like it had never existed. Sunlight striped the bedroom floor in golden bars, and Lena woke to the scent of coffee and eggs drifting through the penthouse. She found Armin in the kitchen, his broad frame softened by morning light as he moved with precise efficiency between stovetop and counter. He'd traded last night's tactical gear for a black Henley and dark jeans, though his gun remained holstered at his hip. Sleep well? He asked, sliding a plate of perfectly scrambled eggs toward her. Better than I expected. Lena wrapped her hands around the coffee mug he offered. Any news about last night? Armin leaned against the counter, his own coffee untouched. The attackers carried burner phones. Maya traced them to a cleaning crew of sorts, specialists who handled debt problems for wealthy clients. His jaw tightened. They're usually hired by people who want messy situations to disappear quietly. The implications settled heavily between them as they ate. Afterward, they migrated to the terrace, where the city sparkled under fresh sunlight. Water droplets still clung to the glass barriers, catching light like scattered diamonds. Tell me about you, Lena said softly. The real you, not the rumors. Armin was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. When he did, his voice carried the weight of old wounds. I was 17 when they executed my father. Rival boss. Territory dispute. His fingers tapped in restless rhythm on the glass barrier. My mother. She vanished that same night. Never found her body. He paused, swallowing hard. Maya was just a kid. Scared, hurting, trapped in a chair she was outgrowing. I had nothing but his name and a handful of loyal soldiers. So you built an empire, Lena said, understanding blooming. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. I built a deterrent, made my name mean something, made sure no one would dare touch what's mine again. His expression softened. You should have seen Maya when we finally got her that first proper power chair. All chrome and motors, looked like something from a sci-fi movie. She spent days doing donuts in the garage. The tenderness in his voice when he spoke about Maya transformed him. softening the hard edges of the man the streets called the Black Lion. Lena found herself opening up in return, words spilling out like long-held poison. Ethan, he started small, questioning my overtime shifts, suggesting my scrubs were too revealing. She traced the rim of her coffee cup. Then it was my friends. Too wild, too single, bad influences. My clothes were either too sexy or too frumpy. He controlled our accounts, said he was protecting our future. You married him for stability, Armin observed quietly. I thought I was being practical? Lena's laugh held no humor. Turns out I was just accepting a prettier cage. He didn't want a wife. He wanted a possession he could domesticate. The morning stretched into a peaceful interlude, their conversation drifting to lighter topics. Around noon, Lena retreated to the master suite, needing to do something productive to settle her restless thoughts. She began organizing the closet, hanging her borrowed clothes with methodical precision. Her fingers brushed the locket around her neck. Ethan's first gift, a simple silver oval on a delicate chain. She'd always thought it beautiful in its simplicity, though the hinge had never quite worked right. Now, examining it more closely, she noticed how cheap the metalwork was, how the catch didn't quite align. Ooh, organizing therapy! Maya rolled into the doorway, grinning. I do that too when my brain's too full. Her eyes landed on the locket in Lena's hands. Wow, that's some seriously spy-core ugly right there. And not in the cool retro way. Lena smiled despite herself. It was a gift from Ethan, early days. Maya wheeled closer, head tilted. You know, what's funny about cheap hinges? Sometimes they're cheap because that's all someone could afford, she smirked. And sometimes they're cheap because nobody's supposed to notice what they're hiding. Lena frowned at the locket, turning it over in her hands. The weight had always seemed slightly off balance, but she'd never thought to question why. Speaking of hidden things, Maya continued, want to help me calibrate some new security sensors? I need someone with steady hands who isn't my overprotective brother. The locket forgotten for the moment, Lena followed Maya toward her tech workshop, leaving the quiet sanctuary of the bedroom behind. Sunlight continued to stream through the windows, painting everything in deceptively peaceful hues, while somewhere in the city, wheels were turning that would soon change everything. The morning's peaceful domesticity felt almost surreal against the backdrop of their circumstances. A nurse on the run, a mafia boss serving eggs, secrets lurking behind cheap silver hinges. But in this moment, in this sun-washed fortress high above the city, they had carved out a pocket of calm in the eye of the storm. Maya's workshop buzzed with the kind of organized chaos only its creator could navigate. Screens displaying scrolling code, half-assembled drones on workbenches, and more processing power than most small companies. As Lena helped her test sensor arrays, she found herself grateful for this strange sanctuary and the unlikely allies she'd found within it. Yet even as they worked, the locket rested against her collarbone, its weight now feeling less like jewelry and more like a question waiting to be answered. But that revelation would come later. For now, there was only this moment, the sun, the city, and the tentative peace they'd found in the aftermath of the storm. Lena twirled the locket between her fingers as she walked into Maya's workshop, the setting sun casting long shadows through the wall of windows. So, about what you said earlier, about cheap hinges hiding things? Maya's eyes lit up. She wheeled to a workbench cluttered with gadgets and pulled out something that looked like a pen. Let's satisfy our curiosity, shall we? With your permission, of course. Do it, Lena said, slipping the chain over her head. The locket felt heavier now, weighted with possibility. Maya ran the device over the silver oval, her expression shifting from playful to serious. Well, we've got electromagnetic density inconsistent with solid silver. There's definitely something in there. She glanced toward the doorway where Armin had appeared, silent as a shadow. Big brother, want to witness this? Armin crossed to them, his presence steady. Your call, Lena, Lena nodded. Open it. With precise movements, Maya worked the false hinge. It popped with a soft click, revealing a tiny chip nestled in the hollow space. Hello, beautiful. Someone went through a lot of trouble to hide you. They moved to Maya's main workspace, multiple screens glowing in the dimming light. Her fingers flew across keyboards, breaking through layers of encryption. Ethan may be a bastard, but his cybersecurity is amateur hour. Documents began populating the screens. Clinic ledgers, transfer authorizations, lists of names, dates, amounts. Maya's face grew darker as she scrolled. These names, they match missing persons cases from the past 3 years, all tagged with medical codes, transfer dates, and final destinations marked as disposal. He was trafficking people through the clinic, Armin said, his voice deadly quiet, using medical transport companies as cover. Lena's hands gripped the edge of the desk. The pieces clicked together with horrible clarity. The charity galas, the community outreach programs, they were all fronts, ways to identify vulnerable targets. Her stomach churned. He needed me dead because I could expose everything. Maybe cash out insurance, tie up loose ends. He underestimated you, Armin said softly. And he'll pay for that mistake. Maya was already compiling the data into secure packets. This is federal-level evidence, enough to take down the whole operation. Armin pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over a contact. I have someone at the bureau. We've had mutually beneficial arrangements in the past. This kind of evidence, handled properly, buys a lot of goodwill. The families, Lena said suddenly, her voice cracking. All those missing people. Their families deserve to know what happened. Promise me they'll get answers. Armin met her eyes, his gaze intense. You have my word. Every family will know the truth. Every victim will be accounted for. The way he said it felt like more than a promise. It felt like a blood oath. They moved to the living room to plan the handoff. The city lights were coming alive outside, stars appearing in the darkening sky. Lena sat beside Armin on the leather sofa, exhausted but clear-headed. We'll make the exchange tomorrow morning, Armin explained, his arm a warm presence behind her shoulders. Neutral location, controlled environment. Maya will monitor remotely. Lena leaned into him, her head finding the solid curve of his shoulder. The events of the past 3 days crashed over her, the betrayal, the violence, the revelation of how deep the corruption went. Yet here, in this moment, she felt anchored. Lena! Armin's voice was low, careful. May I kiss you? No audience, no adrenaline, just us. She turned to face him, taking in the sharp lines of his face softened by the city lights. Yes. He cradled her face with calloused hands, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. The first press of his lips was gentle, questioning. She answered by sliding her fingers into his hair, deepening the kiss. Heat bloomed between them as the kiss grew more intense. His hand stayed respectfully above her clothes, but every touch sparked electricity. She traced the strong line of his jaw, feeling his pulse race. Beneath her fingers, when his tongue swept against hers, she made a soft sound that had him pulling her closer. They broke apart, breathing heavy, foreheads touching. His hands had somehow found their way to her waist, hers still tangled in his hair. The desire between them was palpable, a living thing. We should stop, Armin said roughly, though his grip tightened slightly. We should, Lena agreed, even as she pressed another quick kiss to the corner of his mouth. Too much happening, too raw. When this is over, he promised. When you're ready. When we're both ready, she corrected gently. He smiled, that rare expression that transformed his whole face. When we're both ready. They stayed like that for a while, trading soft kisses and lighter touches, letting the intensity ebb naturally. The city hummed beyond the windows, unknowing that tomorrow would bring a reckoning. For now, there was just this, the warmth of connection, the promise of more, and the quiet strength of choosing each other with clear eyes and full consent. Maya's voice eventually came through the intercom, teasing but gentle. If you two are done making hard eyes at each other, I've got the final data packets ready for review. They separated slowly, reality settling back in. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, the federal handoff, the beginning of justice, the slow process of healing. But tonight they had this moment of peace, carved out of chaos by choice and trust. Moonlight painted silver stripes across the master suite's floor as Sunday night melted into Monday's earliest hours. Lena sat cross-legged on the bed, facing Armin, who mirrored her posture. The city lights behind him cast his profile in shadow, but his eyes remained intent on her face. We need to be clear, Lena said softly. About boundaries, about what we both want and need. Armin nodded, his usual commanding presence gentled in the intimate space. Tell me your terms. If I say stop, everything stops. No questions, no pressure. She held his gaze. I need that promise. Absolutely. His voice was firm. Stop means stop, immediately, always. And a safe word, she continued. Something unmistakable. Choose it. Lighthouse, Lena decided. It's distinct. Impossible to mistake for anything else. His lips curved slightly. Lighthouse it is. He reached for her hand, waiting for her nod before taking it. How do you want me to check in? Ask if I'm good. I'll say green for yes, yellow to slow down, red for stop. Her thumb traced his palm. The same goes for you. This goes both ways. It does, he agreed, something vulnerable flickering across his features. This kind of trust isn't common in my world. Lena shifted closer, drawn by the rare admission. Show me how you want to be touched, she whispered. I'll show you what I like too. His breath caught. May I kiss you? Yes. The first touch of his lips was reverent, careful. Lena wound her fingers in his hair, guiding him closer. When she parted her lips, he followed her lead, letting her set the pace. His hands hovered at her waist. You can touch me, she murmured against his mouth. I'll tell you if I want you to stop. His palm skimmed her sides, warm through the thin fabric of her shirt. Good? Green, she breathed and felt his smile. They took their time, trading soft kisses that grew deeper, hands learning each other's boundaries. When clothing began to fall away, each piece was preceded by quiet questions and clear answers. Lena discovered the scattered scars across his chest, marking old violence. Armin traced the subtle curves of her with something like worship in his touch. Still good, he asked, voice rough with restraint. Green, she answered, drawing him closer. I want this. I want you. What followed was a dance of consent and desire, each touch requested and granted. Armin, who commanded violence with deadly precision, surrendered to her guidance with stunning tenderness. Lena, who had forgotten her own power, reclaimed it in every yes and there and more. When they moved together, it was with shared purpose and mutual care. After, as their breathing steadied, Armin reached for something on the nightstand. A silver chain gleamed in his palm, bearing his signet ring, a lion's head in profile, cast in dark metal. This is a choice, he said quietly. Wearing it marks you as mine to those who know the symbol. It will deter some threats, but others... He met her eyes. Others might see it as a challenge. Lena touched the ring, feeling its weight. Like a target. Yes, his honesty was unflinching. I won't pretend it's safe, but it means protection, resources, my name behind yours. She considered the implications, the complex power dynamics at play. Put it on me. He lifted the chain, giving her time to change her mind. When she nodded, he clasped it around her neck, the ring settling just below her collarbone. His fingers lingered on the chain. Thank you for trusting me, he murmured. Lena covered his hand with hers. Thank you for making it a choice. The peaceful moment shattered as Maya's voice came through the intercom, tight with urgency. Armin, we have a problem. He was instantly alert, though his touch remained gentle. Report. One of the secure dead drops just pinged, the one we haven't used since the Rossi situation. Someone's accessing old channels they shouldn't know exist. Armin's jaw tightened. Internal leak. Looking that way, the access pattern is wrong. Amateur trying to look professional. Sleep, he told Lena softly, pressing a kiss to her forehead. I need to handle this. She caught his wrist. Be careful. His smile was sharp, but his eyes were warm. Always am. Once Lena's breathing had evened out in sleep, Armin moved to the suite's private office. He dialed a number from memory. Dante, he said when the line connected. I need a full audit of our access logs. Every system, every level, dating back 6 months. Priority 1. At this hour, his lieutenant's voice was carefully neutral. Now. And Dante. Armin's tone held a warning. This stays between us. The city was beginning to stir with pre-dawn activity as Armin ended the call. He returned to the bedroom, watching Lena sleep peacefully, the signet ring rising and falling with her breath. Whatever threat was emerging, he would meet it. She had chosen to trust him. He would prove worthy of that trust. Maya's text lit up his phone. Logs incoming. We'll find the leak. Armin's response was simple. We always do. Dawn painted the city in steel grays when Armin returned to the penthouse. His jaw was granite tight, exhaustion etched in the shadows under his eyes. Lena watched him shed his jacket, noting the fresh bruising on his knuckles. Someone's been feeding information, he said without preamble. Someone who knows our systems, our protocols. The weight of unspoken names hung between them. Lena set down her coffee. How bad? Bad enough. They left a trail meant to be found, amateur work trying to look professional. He rolled his shoulders, tension visible. It means they're either sloppy or want us distracted. Maya's voice crackled through the intercom. Feeds are clear for the federal meet. I've got eyes on all approaches. Armin moved to the safe room, returning with a slim case and what looked like a designer jewelry box. Inside was a flesh-toned earbud, barely visible once he helped Lena fit it. Direct line to Maya and me, he explained, testing the connection. If anything goes wrong, you follow the contingencies exactly. Secondary exit first. Then the watch beacon if that's compromised, Lena finished. I remember. He caught her hand, thumb brushing over her pulse. This meets needs to happen. The evidence has to reach the right hands or those families never get answers. Lena touched the signet at her throat. I know. We do this right. They took separate vehicles to the meeting site, maintaining distance until the final approach. The underground parking level was exactly as Maya's intel suggested. Dim fluorescents, concrete pillars, security cameras with predictable blind spots. Their footsteps echoed as they moved toward the elevator bank. A car alarm shattered the silence. Smoke billowed between the pillars, thick and disorienting. Lena felt Armin's hand tighten on her arm, heard him bark orders into his comm. Then rough hands grabbed her from behind, dragging her backward as a cloth pressed over her mouth. She fought, remembering Armin's training, elbow to solar plexus, heel to instep. But a second attacker joined the first, pinning her arms. Through the chaos, she saw Armin's gun, trained on her captors, his face terrible with rage. Then Maya's voice cut through all channels. Multiple devices detected in the penthouse structure, timer active, evacuation protocols initiated. Lena saw the choice tear through Armin like physical pain. His sister, his fortress, dozens of innocent lives, against her immediate safety. She met his eyes and gave a tiny nod. Trust me to survive this. Clear the building, he commanded into his comm. Full evacuation, all units to the penthouse. Now. The last thing Lena saw was Armin's face, carved from marble and promising vengeance, as her attackers shoved her into a waiting van. The doors slammed shut, and the vehicle peeled away with squealing tires. Inside the van, Lena forced herself to breathe steadily, to think past the fear. She was wedged between two men in black tactical gear, their faces hidden behind balaclavas. A third man drove, while a fourth rode shotgun. No windows in the back, but she could track their movement by sound and feel. Right turn, holding for approximately 40 seconds. Left turn onto what felt like a main road. More traffic noise, smoother pavement. Another right after 3 blocks, judging by the rhythm of cross streets they passed. The safety pin she'd slipped into her sleeve earlier pressed against her skin, a tiny anchor of control. They hadn't searched her thoroughly, treating her as a soft target. Their first mistake. The boss wants her intact, the driver called back. No marks. She's not going anywhere, one of her guards replied, grip loosening slightly. Lena kept her body deliberately slack, playing into their assumptions. She was a nurse, a victim, no threat to trained men. She counted their breaths, noted their blind spots, and waited. Through her hidden earbud, she caught fragments of chatter. Devices disarmed, building secure, tracking possible routes based on traffic patterns, and Armin's voice, deadly calm. I'm coming for you. Hold on. The van swung onto what felt like a service road, the surface rougher. Lena's guards shifted their weight to compensate for the bumps, creating small gaps in their hold. She kept her muscles relaxed, preserved her energy, and remembered Armin's lessons in the training room. Every target has a weakness, every cage has a flaw. Sometimes survival means waiting for the right moment. She felt the safety pin's sharp point against her palm, a reminder that she wasn't helpless. These men expected compliance, expected fear. They didn't know she'd spent the weekend learning from a man who turned violence into an art form. They didn't know she'd chosen to wear his signet, not just as protection, but as a promise to herself. The van slowed for another turn. Through the earbud, she heard Maya's voice. Signal's holding! We've got you! Lena's fingers closed around the safety pin. She wouldn't be prey again. Not today, not ever. The warehouse air hung thick with river damp and decades of decay. Lena sat with her back against a concrete pillar, zip ties biting into her wrists, counting breaths and cataloging details like she would for a trauma admission. 4 guards, 2 by the loading dock doors, 1 patrolling the perimeter, 1 watching her directly, hand resting on his, holstered weapon. The leader had a slight Boston accent, while 2 others spoke with Eastern European inflections. They checked their phones regularly, waiting for instructions. She flexed her fingers to maintain circulation, mind racing through potential scenarios. The medkit they'd brought in sat tantalizingly close. Standard issue, probably lifted from an ambulance. She'd glimpsed syringes, glucose tablets, basic supplies. Tools, if she could reach them. Across the city, Armin stood in his private office, facing Dante across his mahogany desk. The space felt airless, compressed by the weight of betrayal. "You have exactly 30 seconds, Armin said, voice winter cold, to explain why my secure channels were compromised. Dante's hand twitched toward his shoulder holster. In one fluid motion, Armin had him disarmed and pinned against the wall, gun pressed to his temple. 20 seconds now. "I had debts," Dante gasped. "Elena. She relapsed bad. The rehab center wanted payment up front. The rival family offered. You sold out my operation to protect your junkie girlfriend." The words carried death in them. "They just wanted information about the federal meet. I didn't know they'd grab her, I swear. They weren't supposed to." Armin's finger tightened on the trigger. "Location. Now." "Riverside Warehouse Complex, Building 7C. They're expecting Ethan around sunset for some kind of negotiation." Dante's words tumbled out. "Please, she's my brother's woman. I wouldn't let them hurt her." "Half-brother," Armin corrected coldly. "And she's mine." In the warehouse, Lena watched the guards shift positions, noting their patterns. The one watching her, young, nervous, probably new to this, kept checking his phone. His attention wavered. She let her breathing grow labored, slumping slightly. She swallowed hard. "I need sugar. Please, I'm hypoglycemic." The guard frowned. "Nice try." "Check my medical history if you don't believe me." Her voice shook, not entirely acting. "Without glucose, I'll pass out. Maybe seize. Is that what your boss wants?" He hesitated, then moved toward the medkit. "Perfect." "The tablets," she directed weakly. "Orange bottle." As he knelt to search, she palmed the syringe she'd spotted earlier. When he approached with the glucose, she struck, driving the needle into his thigh through his tactical pants. He stumbled, cursing as the sedative hit his system. She was moving before he hit the ground, sawing the zip ties against a broken pipe until they snapped. The other guards shouted, footsteps thundering closer. She ducked behind stacked pallets, pressing herself into shadow. Across the city, Armin moved with mechanical precision, coordinating through his earpiece with Maya. "Thermal imaging shows 6 heat signatures inside," Maya reported. "One smaller figure, has to be Lena, separated from the others near the northwest corner. The building's on the original power grid. One transformer serves the whole. Block. Get our people in position. Wait for my signal." Armin checked his weapons with practiced efficiency. "What's her status?" "Holding stable position. She's smart, staying hidden." Pride colored Maya's voice. "But they're sweeping the space systematically. She needs an exit soon." In the warehouse, Lena controlled her breathing as footsteps approached her hiding spot. The guard she'd drugged was still unconscious, 1 down, 3 to go, but they were armed, angry, and closing in. "Come out now," the leader called. "And maybe we don't have to hurt you." She stayed silent, calculating angles and distances. The loading dock was 30 meters to her right. Emergency exit, maybe 40 meters left. Stairs to a catwalk above. She just needed an opening. Armin's convoy cut through twilight traffic, red lights reflecting off rain-slick streets. He kept one hand on his gun, the other on his earpiece, coordinating the approaching strike teams. "All units in position," Maya confirmed. "Power kill switch ready on your mark." Lena pressed deeper into her hiding spot as shadows shifted nearby. Her pulse thundered in her ears, but her mind stayed clear. She was done being a victim, done being leverage. She just had to survive until... "Hold on, Zvezdoshka," Armin's voice whispered through her earpiece, using the Russian endearment that meant little star. "The lights are about to go out." She closed her eyes, steadied her breath, and prepared to move. Whatever came next, she would meet it fighting. The warehouse creaked and settled, metal groaning in the river wind. Guards' radios crackled with static-filled updates. Through gaps in the pallets, Lena glimpsed the last colors of sunset, painting the high windows purple and gold. She traced the path of an IV line in her mind, remembering the steady drip of saline, the careful measurement of medication. The same precision would guide her now. Each movement calculated, each decision measured against risk and reward. Water lapped at the pilings outside, a steady rhythm like a countdown. The guard nearest to her position shifted his weight, boots scraping concrete. Someone's radio squawked an update about an approaching vehicle. Lena felt the warehouse's vast space pressing down, filled with shadow and threat and possibility. But she wasn't alone in the dark. She had Armin's training, Maya's tech, and her own stubborn will to survive. She flexed her fingers, ready. The lights would go out, and in that moment of chaos, she would become something more than prey. She would become the thing they didn't see coming. The warehouse plunged into absolute darkness. For 3 heartbeats, silence held. Then chaos erupted. Muzzle flashes punctuated the blackness like deadly fireflies, illuminating fragments of scene, stacked crates, rusted beams, men with guns moving like shadows, the air filled with cordite and shouts. Lena stayed low, using the darkness as cover. Her fingers traced the concrete floor, finding her, way between pallets toward a side office she'd noted earlier. The watch on her wrist vibrated once, Maya's signal that Armin was inside. She heard him before she saw him. Not footsteps. Armin moved too quietly for that. But the distinctive sound of bodies hitting concrete, the muffled grunts of precise violence. He was cutting through the warehouse like a knife through silk, each movement calculated and lethal. A flash of gunfire revealed him 20 feet away, a dark figure moving with liquid grace. 2 guards went down before they could raise their weapons. The third managed to squeeze off a shot that went wide. Lena reached the office doorway just as someone triggered emergency lights. The sudden red glow cast everything in blood tones, throwing sharp shadows across metal and concrete. "There!" a shout from above. Gunfire erupted. Armin appeared beside her like a summoned spirit, pushing her behind him as bullets peppered their position. She saw the impact, the way his shoulder jerked, the dark spray of blood. But he didn't make a sound, just returned fire with mechanical precision. "Down," he ordered, voice tight with pain. They dropped behind a fallen filing cabinet as more shots rang out. "Let me see." Lena ripped a strip from her shirt, hands steady despite the adrenaline. The bullet had gone through clean. Good news, but he was losing blood fast. She pressed the makeshift bandage hard against the wound. "Breathe with me," she commanded, falling into her nurse's rhythm. "Slow and steady, in through your nose, out through your mouth." He complied, firing his pistol left-handed without missing a beat. 2 more attackers went down with precise shots to center mass. New voices echoed across the warehouse. Lena recognized Ethan's cultured tones, incongruous among the rough accents of hired muscle. "Mr. Vale," Ethan called out, "let's discuss this like businessmen. You have something I want, I have something you want." Armin's laugh was cold as winter. "Your wife isn't property to trade." "Oh, but she is," Ethan's voice dripped condescension. "Did she never tell you about her father's gambling debts? How I graciously offered marriage to clear them? She was always meant to be disposable once she became a liability." Lena felt Armin tense beneath her hands. She saw him tap his earpiece twice, a signal to Maya. "Say that again," Armin projected his voice, steady despite the blood soaking Lena's fingers. "About the marriage arrangement." Ethan, too arrogant to recognize the trap, launched into a sneering monologue about debt collection and insurance policies, unaware it was being streamed to federal agents. A burst of gunfire interrupted his speech. One of the rival bosses, seeing his chance slipping away, opened up with an automatic weapon. Lena moved instinctively, covering Armin's wounded side with her body as he took the shot. One clean round that dropped the boss mid-spray. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Ethan's swagger evaporated as he realized his position was collapsing. "This isn't over," he snarled, backing toward the riverside exit. But it was. Federal agents crashed through multiple entrances, weapons raised, shouting commands. Ethan spun toward the water, but found his escape route already blocked. Lena supported Armin as he rose, one arm around his waist. His skin was clammy, shirt soaked with blood, but his eyes remained alert. She lifted his right hand, pressing her lips to his bloodied knuckles. "Don't you dare die on me," she whispered fiercely. "I haven't said yes to forever yet." His laugh was rough with pain, but real. "Is that a promise, Zvezdochka?" "It's a threat." She helped him stand straighter as Maya's voice came through their earpieces, confirming the building was secure. "I'm not done with you yet." Around them, agents zip-tied suspects while medics rushed in with kits and stretchers. Ethan's voice rose in desperate protest as he was cuffed and read his rights. The warehouse air hung heavy with gun smoke and the metallic tang of blood, but beneath it all, Lena could smell river water and dawn approaching. She kept pressure on Armin's wound as they moved toward the exit, his weight heavy but welcome against her side. His breathing was controlled, measured, the discipline that made him dangerous now helping him manage the pain. "Maya," he spoke into his comm. "Status." "All clear, big brother," Maya's voice crackled back. "Dante's secured. Ethan's confession is logged and transmitted, and I've got medics waiting for you topside. Also, you're an idiot for taking that bullet, but I love you anyway." Noted. His lips twitched, despite the pain. They emerged from the warehouse into a chaos of flashing lights and organized law enforcement activity. The night air was cool against their skin, carrying the promise of morning beneath the lingering storm clouds. Lena kept her arm around Armin as they navigated through the scene, her nurse's eye tracking his vitals even as she fielded preliminary questions from agents. His blood had soaked into her shirt, marking them both, but his steps remained steady. The sky was beginning to lighten, the first hint of dawn touching the eastern horizon. Another day breaking over the city, over the river that had seen so much darkness and would keep flowing regardless of what transpired on its banks. Morning sunlight streamed through the clinic windows, warming the pristine sheets where Armin rested. The private suite, part of his legitimate medical holdings, hummed with quiet efficiency. Lena dozed in the chair beside his bed, her hand resting near his. Dark circles under her eyes, testament to her vigilance through his surgery and stabilization. Maya's wheelchair whirred softly as she entered, tablet balanced on her lap. "Good news express coming through," she announced, keeping her voice low but cheerful. "The ledgers did exactly what we needed. FBI's running a full operation, picking up all Ethan's associates." She glanced at her tablet. "He's facing conspiracy charges, attempted murder, trafficking, the works. They're not playing nice with him." Armin shifted, wincing slightly as the movement pulled at his fresh bandages. The hospital? Already drafting their public apology. Maya's grin turned savage. That fake theft video? Completely discredited. Their IT team found evidence of tampering and they're falling over themselves to make it right. PR nightmare for them if they don't. Lena stirred, blinking awake. She immediately checked Armin's IV line and vitals monitor with practiced efficiency. "Stop fussing," he murmured, catching her hand. "I'm fine." "You were shot," she reminded him, but her lips curved up slightly. "A minor inconvenience," Maya snorted. "Only you would call a GSW a minor inconvenience." She tapped her screen. "Also, your security teams reported in. Everything's quiet. Seems like taking down Ethan's operation sent the right message to anyone else thinking of causing trouble." The morning passed in a peaceful rhythm of medical checks and quiet conversations. By early afternoon, Armin was sitting up, though Lena enforced strict limits on his movement. Sunlight pooled on the floor as clouds drifted past the windows. "What would home look like for you?" Armin asked suddenly, watching Lena arrange his medications. "Not a cage, not a fortress, just home." She paused, considering. "I want my job back on my terms. No more limited hours or controlled schedule." She moved to sit on the edge of his bed. A room for Maya's tech lab when she visits, somewhere she can tinker without worrying about building codes. "Done," he said immediately. "I'm not finished." Her eyes held a warmth that made his breath catch. "Thursday dinners. Sacred, untouchable, no cancellations, no work emergencies, no lies. Just family. Even if there's a crisis? Especially then." She squeezed his hand. "The world won't end if the feared black lion takes 2 hours to eat with his family." Maya wheeled back in, having left earlier for a conference call. "I vote yes to all of that, especially the lab space. This one," she jerked her thumb at Armin, "keeps complaining about scorch marks on his expensive floors." "One small explosion," Armin muttered. "It was barely a fire," Maya protested. "And I put it out," Lena laughed, the sound bright in the sterile room. "The lab gets proper ventilation," she declared, "and a fire suppression system." "Spoil sport," Maya grinned. The afternoon settled into quiet planning, not just for discharge, but for their future. Lena worked with the hospital administration by phone, negotiating her return to the ER. Armin coordinated with his legitimate business managers, ensuring everything was properly documented for federal oversight. Maya bounced between helping them both, her tablet becoming a command center for their reorganizing lives. Through it all, Armin watched Lena with a softness in his eyes that would have shocked anyone who knew him only as the Black Lion. She moved through the room with quiet confidence, equally comfortable checking his bandages or fielding calls from hospital board members. Every so often, she'd catch his gaze and smile, a private thing that made his chest tight in ways that had nothing to do with his wound. "The annulment paperwork is filed," Maya reported late in the afternoon. "And Dante's handler confirmed he's settled in at the rehabilitation facility. His boyfriend's doing well in the medical detox program." Armin nodded, grateful again for Lena's intervention there. She'd argued for mercy, pointing out that addiction and desperate love could drive anyone to terrible choices. Keep them monitored, he said, but give them the chance. Already set up, Maya assured him. Regular check-ins, controlled environment, proper support systems. They'll either make it work or they won't. But they've got the tools! Lena returned from a quick shower, her hair damp and curling. She immediately checked Armin's temperature and oxygen levels, ignoring his fond eye roll at her persistence. You took a bullet for me, she reminded him. You get to deal with nurse mode until I say otherwise. Yes, ma'am, he murmured, catching her hand and pressing a kiss to her palm. The room fell quiet as evening approached. Maya left to coordinate dinner delivery, giving them a moment alone. Outside, the city lights began to twinkle on, creating a carpet of stars below to match the ones emerging above. Thank you, Lena said softly, for letting me keep my edges, for not trying to smooth them away. Your strength is not something to be contained, Armin replied. It's something to be honored. She leaned down, pressing her forehead to his. We're going to build something beautiful, she whispered. Something that's neither cage nor fortress. Something chosen, he agreed, lifting his hand to cup her cheek. Every day, chosen again,